Good afternoon, everyone. So let's get started. This is our Waco MPO Technical Advisory Committee meeting on April 7th, 2022. We have a few of our members joined in from remotely. So seems like, Meg, can you hear us well? Perfect, great.
Thank you.
So it seems like everything is working fine, so we'll get started. And you have already signed in, so let's move to the agenda. And so today we have a presentation from our fixed route realignment study. So we'll get an update on where we are and some of the next steps and also some timeline. And then we'll give you an update on the status of the amendments that for which we'll be collecting public input. We'll have a strategic planning update from Zain, and then we will have a discussion on related to that the bylaws that we have adopted for TAC, and then we'll have a construction update from Clayton, and Clayton is joining us remotely, and then we'll have a discussion about a few pending items about the TAC. And so let's get started with the presentation from Munira.
You can just stay right there.
Oh, great. Yeah. Hi, my name is Munira Mataiwala. I'm here with ATG and
Take your mask
colleague
off.
Andrew.
Take your mask off. Please.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so everybody, I'm Andrew Dixon with the supporting Munira stuff. So
Yeah, again, sorry. My name is Munira. I'm here with ATG. We're here to provide you guys an update regarding the Reimagine Waco Transit project. Today we'll be going over the project goals, approach, and work completed thus far with respect to public involvement, the existing conditions analysis, and scenario development. But first, I'd like to acknowledge our partners, which is Waco Transit Systems, the City of Waco, Waco MPO, and of course our sub-consultants, AECOM and VIA. So jumping in, Reimagine Waco Transit is a transit alignment study which allows us to redesign the bus system here for the first time in over 20 years. This initiative is an equity-driven project that will examine how the existing routes can be modified to better connect the communities in Waco. This project is really driven by three key goals: to improve connectivity, to minimize travel time, and to provide freedom through transit. You can see these values reflected in how we've developed the project and how it's progressing so far. So what you'll see here is our timeline. On the bottom is our technical analysis in blue, and paralleling that above in green is our community input. So we've provided opportunities at each stage for the community to provide input and tell us their needs and wants for the public transit system. The star indicates where we're at right now today. So we're nearing the end of our scenario development phase, and we'll be asking the public to provide their input on the scenarios that we've developed thus far. So before we began any of this development regarding scenarios, we first went out and reached out to the community to see what they wanted in terms of public transit. Between the months of October and December, we were able to collect over 280 surveys, which told us that the community really wants more time-saving options, dedicated bus stops, more service during evenings and weekends, and bi-directional service. Moving forward, starting today, we will be collecting more input on our scenarios, and phase 2 of the public involvement will go on until April. Also, we conducted a transit market score. This was part of our existing conditions analysis. This looks at key destinations, transit propensity, multimodal connectivity, social vulnerability, and service details. This score is used as a decision-making tool that will help compare each of the scenarios to the existing system today and will help guide our decision. Next, we're going to be talking about scenario development. Here we have proposed 3 separate scenarios. Scenario 1A and 1B include a bus rapid transit option. and scenario C operates as our blank slate. So more specifically, scenario 1A creates a system that is built off of the full built-out alignment of the BRT system, whereas 1B is a more scaled-back version of that and only looks at the core segment. And again, scenario 2 is a blank slate, so we have no preconceptions about what the system should look like. It is completely informed by the underlying markets. Next, you'll see that in addition to our public involvement and our existing conditions analysis, we sat down with operators to ask them what they thought would be good for the system. These are people that ride the routes every day in and out, and they interact with the riders and know where most connections are happening and what are the core segments. So these concepts were integrated into scenario 2. But first, I'd like to talk about scenario 1A and 1B. So those are combined on the same map here. The key difference can be seen on the purple route that cuts through the middle on Franklin Avenue. So scenario 1A, remember, is the full BRT alignment, whereas 1B is just the core segment from Hewitt to Beltmead. Here you'll see 3 microtransit zones also shown in yellow, and the key improvements here compared to the existing system would be bidirectional service, increased connections to key destinations, and increased frequency. Next, we have our blank slate option. Please note there's no BRT in this option, but it does have 2 microtransit zones. The key improvements here are expanded service, improved frequency, and increased connectivity. So looking forward, next steps include public engagement. So that'll be going on throughout the month of April. After that, we'll be conducting ridership forecasting, and then we'll develop our implementation and funding plan. And hopefully by June, we'll have a preferred alternative. So that's all I have today. I can pause here if you guys have any questions, but I do recommend that everyone take the opportunity to look at our website to keep up to date with our progress.
Any questions?
I have one question.
Yeah, of course.
Do you think, based on the information that you gathered, I know you said that most people wanted fixed bus stops.
Mhm.
Do you think that has to do with a lack of knowledge about how the hailing system works, or do you think that that's just the propensity for people right now?
Yeah, so I think in addition to all of the analysis that we've done looking at the existing system, we have identified opportunities for on-time performance, and I think ridership could improve from dedicated bus stops, and that on-time performance would allow fixed route bus system to come to a stop every single time around the same time. And I do think it's possible that because it's a fly-to-stop system, that new users are less likely to use it because it's not a traditional bus system. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
I think also from a rider's perspective, it feels like it's faster. You know, I think Manera pointed out that people wanted faster, more direct trips. And so, you know, I know when working in other areas, when they have flag stops, there's sometimes with some riders, they feel like they're stopping every block and it's unpredictable, their trip. Whereas with a fixed stop, the trip is more predictable and the segments of the trip are more predictable. You feel like you're moving and you are moving faster as well. So I think from the operator perspective, the Waco Transit, it's all about safety and on-time performance. But from the rider's perspective, it also feels like it's very slow.
Well, if it's all about safety, then that we would think that fixed stops make more sense because that's predictable
Exactly.
and safer for the bus driver.
That's what I'm saying, to make that transition to fixed stops, that's a much safer scenario for the drivers especially. You know,
So I don't know the history. Were we ever a fixed stop transit system, or were we always a handling system? I don't know.
I'm not sure, but it seems like it's a little bit of a hybrid right now. You know, there's some fixed stops and then flag stops. So maybe Annette knows, I don't know. But was it always a kind of a blend separate stop and flag stop, or was it ever all fixed stop?
I don't know years back, but I know for at least the last 20 years, it's been mostly flag stop.
Okay.
There's a couple of stops that are permanent, like an MCC, couple things like that, but mostly it's operated as a flag stop.
And just one quick question about how
Go back to
the
Tinker.
surveys were received. Was it,
Mhm.
do you have any idea on percentage of ridership?
Is this working?
who participated, who submitted surveys?
Yeah, we spent a whole day at the transit stop right there, and majority of our surveys were from
Not sure.
the transit center itself. We also made the link available digitally, and we also went to community centers and dropped our flyers off, as well as going to farmers markets and local art events. So we tried to get a broad demographic, but we did start off at the transit center for the whole day, trying to capture what the normal ridership and normal riders are within the system. Thanks.
Meg, you had a question? You're muted.
Yeah, sorry. Can you speak to accessibility of the stops? I think if you have fixed stops, you have more opportunity to make sure each of those stops is physically accessible. And how accessibility for people using wheelchairs or walkers or strollers fits into the planning at this point.
Definitely. I mean, that's a big part of it as well, is the accessibility. Yeah, with flag stops, you can't guarantee that at each location. So yeah, that's a good first step in making it more accessible system.
Would it be included in the plan that the city settles on to make sure each of the fixed stops can be reached that way and that people can get from the stop into the bus?
The plan will provide a roadmap to do that, because oftentimes the city and the transit agency and there's others that work together for the sidewalk part of it, and so that you can't just flip the switch and say, okay, there's sidewalks wherever you.
Right.
But you begin that process, and oftentimes it depends on what is around that location. So you try to site those bus stops in accessible locations the best you can. But yeah, I think in some cases there may be a need to sort of have a plan to work towards that.
Okay.
The city's perspective, we would add that to our ADA transition plan, and we would try to work those in to our capital program as we could.
That would be great. Thank you.
Serena, you had a question? Okay, any other question? Okay, then we move to our next segment where we just want to update you very quickly about what we have presented last time in a great bit of detail. We are going through the public input process, and this will come to policy board agenda at the next meeting, and we'll have the final detail of the TIP and the related amendment final versions at the next meeting here.
And just before I begin, if you didn't get to see all of the transit presentation, it is online at the MPO website under the meetings page, and you can flip through that.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. So just real quickly, we went over this in detail last month, but just to remind you, just a UPWP amendment snapshot. The fixed route study that we were just talking about began later than expected. So ZWOR dollars were expended in 2021. So we're carrying over, we're proposing to carry over those unexpended funds to 2022. The overall budget stays the same. We also are proposing the additional 48,000 for budget for summer interns. That's the UPWP, and then the public participation plan. Staff is proposing minor changes to the plan, which include updating the technical advisory committee name throughout the document, adding the transportation planning process diagram that you all are very familiar with now, and adding a performance target discussion. Also clarifying meeting guidelines for work groups and executive sessions in section 4, and then the clarifications in section 6 are related to the definition and use of routine policy actions, and then there's a clarification regarding performance targets. The proposed amendment to the MTP, it's just we're revising the definition and discussion of group projects, and also will be now grouping bike and pedestrian projects. We are proposing a revision to strategy 5. It's just updating project descriptions and cost estimates to reflect project information that's in the draft tip. Removing the I-35 breakout projects from the MTP that have been proposed the last time we had prepared the tip. So there's no need for those at this point, so we're removing them from the MTP. And then we added the adopted transit safety performance targets also in the MTP. So those are all proposed revisions. The next thing is the draft transportation improvement program for fiscal years 23 through 26. The TIP identifies transportation projects and strategies from the MTP that will be programmed for phase implementation over the next 4 years. That means that necessary environmental and engineering studies and acquisition of needed right-of-way may begin, and that's followed by project construction. So we're proposing to program the engineering phase for 10 highway projects, the right-of-way phase for 3, and the construction phase for 1 project, and include programming for the maintenance and the operations system, operations of the transit system. And then we revise the definition discussion of group projects to be consistent with the MTP. So the public comment period will begin tomorrow and will last for 1 month for the TIP, the proposed TIP, the proposed amendments to the UPWP and the MTP amendments, but it'll stay open through June 2nd for the PPP amendment. And then we have 2 public meetings scheduled for Monday. And then on May 5th, staff will brief TAC on the feedback we've received, and then we'll ask you to consider recommendations for policy board regarding the amendments and tips. And then the public hearing will be held during the policy board meeting on May 19th, and then the board will consider adoption of these amendments and the tip at that time. So are there any questions? I know I went through that quickly. So all of the documents are online. You can look through them if you so desire, and I also have a copy of all the amendments and the tip document here with me if you want to look at it before you leave.
Annette, this is Brigida.
Hi, Brigida.
I wanted to ask, I know that in the past, those public meetings are recorded and then posted for viewing after, if you're not able to make it at that time and you'll be able to view it later. Is that also going to be offered now?
Yes,
Or
ma'am.
made available?
Yes.
Great. Thank you so much.
Okay. It'll probably be up online on Tuesday.
That's great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, next we have an update from Zane about our strategic planning work group.
Hello, everyone. So starting on March 4th last month, there was a group of us that were began to meet for the strategic planning work group. I'd like to tell you about the members. The members are Waco Councilman Jim Holmes, Hewitt City Manager Bo Thomas, County Engineer Zane Dunham, Waco Public Works Director Amy Bartley Highland, and then our citizens representative is Lorraine DePuy. And we've met a few times and trying to figure out what we need to be doing, essentially. And so I've been designated as the person to speak to you all, the TAC, and then Bo Thomas has been designated as the person to speak to the policy board. And the items we've started discussing thus far is a 5-year strategic plan, the TMA designations. When we reach a certain threshold of population, then we might get into this TMA designation. shifting from a project orientation type system to a more contextual, holistic type mobility planning system. And then to help us strategize and to develop our plans, we've accepted the assistance from the Texas Transportation Institute, TTI, which is based out of Texas A&M and College Station. They help MPOs across the state to progress and evolve, and so they have been a big help thus far, and I expect them to still be a big help going forward, especially when we get to the TMA threshold. And then we've also discussed the need for the role of the MPO to kind of evolve from being a project deliverer, seen as a group that delivers projects, to one that facilitates projects. And correct me if I'm wrong, Mukesh, but that's the way I kind of understand things. And then we've also discussed our regional identity. We're starting to look at who we are, what we're about, and maybe rebrand ourselves to help better communicate to the public, so that when the public hears MPO, they know who we are and what we're about, what we're supposed to be doing, and what our role is in the grand scheme of transportation, both vehicular and pedestrian. And then we're trying to identify who our partners are. Of course, we know who our state and federal partners are, but we're trying to also identify our stakeholders, local stakeholders, and regional stakeholders. And then, like I said, determining our core responsibilities and opportunities for growth and improvement, as well as having some visionary lightning bolts to help us see the future and read the crystal ball better. So that's what I have for you now. Have any questions, I'd be happy to attempt to answer.
We have to remember to put money in the budget for the Magic 8 Ball.
We do have a budget, which is currently zero, so I'll leave my hat at the door if y'all want to throw some dollars in. We have to accept.
Any questions?
Thank you all.
I just wanted to really emphasize that the strategic planning process is crucially important, because there are two major motivations that we have had. One, obviously, is that as we grow and we reach the 200,000 potential, the TMA status makes a lot of changes. So it not only allows us access to different categories of funds, but also puts additional requirements for producing a congestion management plan, as well as have access to better resources. And the second part of it is that we have been sort of operating the way a lot of very small MPOs operate, and given our size and the changes in our region itself, it has become really important that we look at mobility not only as a single framework, but something that is specific to different communities, because they're all evolving very differently. And so the strategic planning work group is really helping us to hone in and figure out exactly the kinds of steps we need to take over the next 5 years. And then we will expect to go through another similar process at the end of 5 years. So thank you. And if you have any question, by all means, Amy and Zaina here, they're both sort of driving our work group. And so they can answer questions, and we'll, of course, be happy to provide any information.
I think it's a really exciting opportunity, and from my perspective, it's not that we haven't been doing a good job of what we've been doing. It's that how should we reimagine it so that we can bring in more pieces of the puzzle and make a bigger and better jigsaw puzzle than what we're working on, have been working on to date. We've got a great foundation. It's just what we would like to add to that foundation to build our house up.
Exactly. Any other thoughts, questions, comments? Okay, great. Then I have this is sort of like our first major event since I have been here at the Waco MPO, so I'm very excited to talk about it. Because this is the first step in which we are making our technical advisory committee not only much more integrated, but making sure that our technical advisory committee really provides us with all the wisdom, knowledge, expertise that they have, so that the policy board can make decisions in a much more informed way, so that we can actually have a planning process in the region that is reflective of the kind of region we want, the kind of planning process that we think is suitable, what is most appropriate. And so this is our first step. So the very first thing we did was, until recently, our TAC membership was fairly ad hoc. There was not a lot of discussion on what kind of representation we needed. So we put together in the bylaw, and we went through this iteration about 3 or 4 times with the membership who are going to be, what is going to be the membership. One of the major concerns we had was that we wanted to make sure that there were several ex officio members, because we benefit from their expertise and knowledge. So we don't want them to not be here, but at the same time, we want to benefit from their knowledge, but not necessarily from their local understanding and knowledge in a regional manner. So we wanted to make sure that we have a clear distinction between voting membership and ex officio membership. Then we also, we have started communicating to all the TAC members this morning. In May, we are going to have elections if we get all the nominations in place. And in a moment, I'll go over all the membership changes that are happening that we're communicating today. And also, we really would appreciate on TAC's help to fill up all the work groups. And in a moment, I'll talk about that as well. So this is what our membership looks like. For some of you, it might just be too small, but we color coded it to show that all the rows in green are the current members who are moving to the new TAC membership. All the ones in yellow are the ones where we have to make some changes. So either these members have now been classified as ex officio members, or that they have been moved to stakeholders list, or we have to redesignate some of the membership. So the most important ones that I want to point out is that Mr. Keith Bond, he is the city manager of Lacey Lakeview. He served on both TAC and policy board. According to the new bylaw, we have to have 2 separate members. So people who serve on the policy board cannot serve on the TAC as well. So we have sent him an email asking him to designate a person from Lacey Lakeview. Similarly, Christy Bonnen, I think she may actually be on the call. She's the TechStop planner, and she becomes ex officio member. Tom Dahl, he was the city engineer, but that role is going to be executed through Amy. So he is going to be on the stakeholder list. Chief Tom Dixon, he was representing Small Cities South. He's the police chief of Lorena. So one of the changes we're making is that all the smaller cities have been divided up into northern cities and the southern cities. And all the northern cities are going to have 1 representative on the TAC, and we will coordinate it through the offices of County Engineer Zane Dunham, as well as it will come through Judge Felton's office as the highest ranking official of the county. And then next we have David Gonzalez. So City of Beverly Hills is going to be included among the northern cities. Brigida Gonzalez, Jeff Jackson, they're both going to become ex officio. Mayor Jim Jaska, who is here, we are going to request him to also for a new member to represent the northern small cities through the county. And then Joel Martinez he's the airport manager. He becomes ex officio, and Debbie Tapiri, she also becomes ex officio member. So these are the changes that we have made so far. So it looks like this now. So this is the complete list of 19 members who were part of the TAC according to the new bylaws. And all the vacancies are in bold, for which we will be expecting nomination prior to the next meeting so that we can hold an election. And then this is the current list of ex officio members. There is no limit on who can be ex officio members. And I should point out that if anyone on the TAC feels the need that we need to bring in someone as ex officio member. You can make a proposal, nominate them, we'll vote on it, and they become ex officio member. They do not have to represent any particular designation. And so that's the current list. Any question about the membership?
When somebody gets nominated for a position, do they need to have to be present to win?
So the process that, I mean, that's actually a great question, because in the past, I think we have had, several members of the TAC committee have been very regular at the meeting, but several have not been coming to the meeting altogether. So in the new bylaw, we do have that all the voting members, if they miss 2 meetings continuously, they have to forego their voting rights at the next meeting. And if they do not come for 3 meetings consecutively, then we will inform their highest ranking official that they need to designate someone other than who we have. And so it is, so we are trying to make sure that we have the membership present here.
Because we have work to do.
Yes, that's the point. And and once we complete this, then I also have a couple of things that I want to bring up to your attention. Let's go back to that.
Mukesh, this is Barbara Maley with Federal Highway Texas Division.
Hi. Yes.
Which list this federal highway ended up on?
Ex officio.
On TAC or policy board?
But actually, I believe both.
Okay, all right, that's perfect, because I didn't want to lose the opportunity to know when you were having technical and policy board meetings. Thank you.
Yeah, yes, of course, both. So we will update this ex officio list, because I'm assuming that we will have a few changes, especially based on discussion that I'm about to ask you for your indulgence in a moment before we get to Clayton. So according to the new bylaws, we have 4 work groups that we have created. One of them is very functional. It's called Bike and Pedestrian Work Group. Then we have a citizen participation work group. We have connected and automated vehicle work group. And we also have a transportation and land use work group. Of these 4 work groups, only Bike and Pedestrian work group is very active at the moment. And Meg is here to represent the Bike and Pedestrian work group. The other 3 work groups are not very active. One of the thoughts we had at the NPO, and we want your opinion on this so that we can make changes accordingly, that each of the work group, it would be great to have them be represented at TAC on a regular basis in ex officio capacity. And so that way, each member, each of the work group then gets to nominate a person to be as ex officio member of the TAC, so that they can bring in their expertise, knowledge of their work group area into the discussions we do. And this is going to be especially important because one of the major tasks that we will start tackling in the TAC over the next 6 months or so is to start developing a framework for project selection and call for proposals and the project selection criteria. And so more expertise, more knowledge we have of the region present in that discussion, better we can come up with that framework. So that's the first proposal that I had, which I thought it would be great to get your opinion on, so that we can start including. So we'll probably begin with one person we can identify quickly on this work group, because I understand that attending a lot of meetings is a bit of a burden, and so we want to be as careful about using their time as possible. But initially, I was wondering if we could nominate one person to represent each of the work group, and then start building these work groups so that they can have their own internal discussions and bring those ideas to the TAC, so that then TAC can not only assign some of the tasks to the work groups, but also benefit from their expertise as well. So any thought or comment?
I'll say that I think it's a good idea. I don't know who we would nominate, but I think that's a good idea.
Yes. If any of you have any names, for instance, it'll be great. One of the names that we have discussed yesterday, that for the public participation group, Lorraine Dupuy, who is working with us on the strategic planning work group, She also served on the policy board, and she was also the planning commission's chair. She is very active in the community, so we were wondering if we could invite her, for instance, to sort of take on the public participation group work group role and provide some leadership in that group. We have not contacted her, so we are talking this without her knowledge.
Well, she's not here, so we should
So we talked about-
nominate her, right?
Is that the citizen work group you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
We also have a representative today from MCC, and they're
Yes.
looking to be more involved. And hi, Shauna, wave. And so, you know, my opinion, they would also be great on the Citizens Advisory group. Any kind of,
Just to run down them again, I think I missed one. Bike, pedestrian, citizen engagement, public participation, connected and automated, and what was the fourth one?
Transportation and land use. Because ideally, we would like to have a group of people who are regularly discussing how transportation without its land use context is sort of difficult to comprehend, and so they need to bring up the ideas. And so that one is particularly helpful to have some of the land use planners who are in the area, plus also getting some of the economic development people engaged with that group, so that we can start thinking. Even for transit, for instance, it would be useful to start thinking about our bus stops more in line with the land use around the bus stops rather than stops by themselves.
so I'll send out an email to the group either this afternoon or tomorrow with the names of the 4 work groups. So you have them in front of you, and then just send Vikash, or you can respond to that email if you have anyone that you think would be good that you would like us to contact. Is that okay?
Can we make a point of ensuring that someone from the disability community is involved in the citizens participation work group?
Absolutely.
Okay. I have someone I think may be interested, but of course y'all know more people than just I do.
Yeah, no, but it will be great for, please send us, if you have their contact information or at least the name, so that we can reach out to them.
Great.
Yeah.
And we will get an email about this that I can send that in response to. Yes.
Great.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, then let's get the updates.
All right, Clayton, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. We'll start with Waco Drive ADA. Again, this is our sidewalk project between Center Point and FM 933 on Waco Drive. Contractor has completed a vast majority of the signal foundations to this point. We started to set the new signal poles at some of these intersections. And then over the next several weeks, we'll start hanging the new signal arms. So there will be some temporary traffic stops and some detours to get that work done. And then along with that, we've started installing a lot of the new sidewalk and curb ramps, again, working west of the river at this point towards the Center Point area. And we're still on track to be completely done with this project by the end of this calendar year. Our FM 185 rehab and widening, again, this is from FM 938 to roughly the 317 area in Crawford. We've gotten the majority of the shoulder widening done, starting with our base course, and contractor started paving operations. We'll expect that to continue through the spring and then wrap up this summer. State Highway 31, the contractor has poured the new bridge deck for the eastbound main lanes and is working on the railing there. They've started a lot of their paving operations for the westbound side of the intersection, so the county road side. They started some of their paving operations for the westbound ramp to the main lanes, along with starting the widening work on FM 939 down to Happy Swainer. We're looking at completing that project next summer. Our Spring Valley widening, again, a full rehab and widen, adding a center turn lane, shoulders, drainage improvements, and sidewalk near the school. That project will start up April 18th. Big Creek is our contractor. And right now we're looking at a 2.5-year project. When they hit the ground later this month, the primary focus is going to be between Old Temple and Interstate, so sort of the north end of that project. All right, State Highway 6 Mall to Mall, again, continuing to make good progress. Weber is working on the new Bagby U-turn bridges. Again, we got all beam set since our last meeting. They're starting on the deck work. We've been pouring what we call the shear keys, which is just the closure pour in between the beams. We expect to pour that bridge deck later this month, and then later this spring we'll have those U-turns open and operational. And then a little further to the west, we continue to work on the new frontage road bridges and retaining walls at the Beverly Railroad crossing. Again, that work will continue through the summer. And then just a note for a high impact closure we see coming up, the Exchange Parkway intersection will be closed the late part of the spring, early summer for around 2 weeks. And again, we're still on track for completing the entire project by the end of next calendar year. Again, here's just a shot of our beam setting operation that took place last month. Go to the next picture. Just another view of the beam set in place. And again, since these were taken, we've started working on that bridge deck. And then just here's a shot of some of the retaining walls going up for the new frontage road bridges there at Beverly. And then last project here, the interstate project. Here's just our breakdown of where we stand on time. Our first milestone, which was the completion of southbound main lanes, you can see was completed significantly earlier than anticipated. Our current construction on the northbound main lanes, we're sitting right at 310 days charged of an allowable 495. And then overall project completion charged 866 days of an allowable 1150. We're still on track to complete within that 1150 with substantial completion coming the late part of this year. All right, here's our first picture here at the south end of the project. Again, you can see we've got just a little bit of concrete pavement work left to do to tie in the main lanes. We expect that to happen late part of April, early May, and potentially getting a portion of that new northbound main lane opened up by Memorial Day. Next slide. Here's just an overhead shot of the new 11th, 12th Street configuration. Again, you can see northbound frontage road has been paved on the bottom side of the screen. Southbound frontage road is complete. We've got bond breaker down for the intersection. This will be one that later part of this month into the beginning of May, you should see work starting on the concrete pavement here. All right, same intersection, just looking back to the south. Again, you can see that new configuration there. Again, I referenced the northbound main lane traffic switch. This is an area where traffic would be split and running on new pavement, hopefully by the Memorial Day timeframe. All right, looking to the north, since this picture was taken, the majority of the concrete pavement has actually been placed between 11th Street and 4th and 5th Street. So continuing to make good progress there. Go to the next slide. Here's an overhead shot of 4th, 5th. Since this picture was taken, we reopened the 4th Street connection there in between the frontage roads and are continuing to work on the east side, tying into Dutton near Baylor. Really the last remaining piece with this intersection is the 5th Street connection on both the east and west sides. We've got some utility work that's wrapping up and work should really start to pick up there later this spring. All right, moving to the north to University Parks. Again, this is another area where the majority of the main lane pavement has been completed since this picture. Work continues at the University Parks intersection. The northbound frontage road connection between the intersection and up to the Brazos River, we'll actually pave that next week. So there will be some closures Monday night, Tuesday night to get that work tied in. Again, just an overhead shot view of the Brazos River Bridge. Again, bridge deck's complete and new pavement is tied in on either side. Just looking to the north there, here you can see northbound main lane pavement going down. One thing to note is we actually opened this on-ramp here between MLK and the river last night. And with that, the on-ramp just north of MLK closed. But again, we've got a permanent ramp open in this area now. Again, same area, just looking back to the south. Overhead shot of MLK. Work continues on the U-turns here. We expect to have those paved and opened up later this spring. Here's just again a shot of the northbound main lanes coming together at the railroad overpass. Again, just another shot of the completed northbound main lane pavement under 4th Street. And then directly overhead at Business 77. Again, this is the last remaining structure to be completed on the job. We'll actually make our first bridge deck pour next week, so we'll have it wrapped up fairly soon. There's been several paving activities going on both the west side of the intersection, the area between the frontage roads, and then getting the second lane paved on the northbound frontage road. We actually expect the closures that are currently in place there to wrap up next week and have 2 lanes moving up to the 84 intersection. Again, same area, just looking back to the south. Here's looking north up to US 84. Again, you can see where we've got a temporary ramp, keeping that connection to 84 currently. We expect that ramp to close possibly later this month or early May to make that tie-in with the main lane pavement there. And then work continues up at the 84 intersection. So again, just a closer look at 84. The westbound lanes have been paved on the east side of the intersection there. And again, later this month, first part of May, we should have traffic split, which should help with the movement of traffic there through the intersection. And this is up at the north end. Since our last meeting, we made a traffic shift, moving traffic over to the newly constructed pavement. You can see the transition there in the middle of the screen, moving over to the east side of the barrier. We've got 2 lanes currently open up through the north end of the project. Later this spring, we should have our center barrier complete and have 3 lanes running up through the 340 intersection. An overhead shot at Barron's. Again, this is an intersection that's very close to completion. We've got a little bit of paving to do on the east side of the intersection, but other than that, is very close to being complete. And then just a shot up to the north end of the project. Again, you can see the 2 new lanes of traffic running up to North Loop 340. And again, we hope to have 3 lanes within the next few weeks. And with that, I'll open it up. Any questions or comments about any particular project?
And can I have a time frame on the 18th Street improvements?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
The 18th Street sidewalk ADA improvements, what's the completion schedule for that? Do you know?
Give me 1 second. I'll pull it for you. And I'll get that added going forward, Amy. I apologize. It's not on here. We are looking at roughly fall timeframe of this year, September, October timeframe.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other question? Okay.
Thank
then,
you, Clayton.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
So let's move to the next page. So our next meeting is on May 5th, but before I want to recap, there are some very important things we'll be doing at the next meeting. One is the elections. And so what it also means is that if any of you is interested in serving as the chair and the vice chair of the TAC, please, you can self-nominate or you can nominate anyone else. Please let me or Annette know, just drop us an email so that we can make the information available. At the next meeting, we will also discuss adoption of the amendments and the TIP, and we'll have an update from the strategic planning work group. But before we adjourn, I wanted to bring up a particular issue that sort of got me thinking about how we, as we move forward for the rest of the year with the work that we need to be doing at the TAC. So the April is the Distracted Driving Awareness Month, am I correct? And so a lot of NPOs have started drafting some press releases about to say that this is what the NPOs are doing. And at the Waco NPO, we are, this is something that we are considering, but I was thinking that this is one of the times when it would be helpful for us to in fact think about, so we have already adopted the Road to Zero targets for that TechStop had suggested. And the process of incorporating that kind of target into our project selection criteria would actually open us up for thinking in ways other than simply improving the current infrastructure. That's when we can also start thinking about, so last time I heard, I don't think anybody who was distracted on the public transportation actually hit somebody and did some damage. Usually that's a problem very limited to a particular mode of travel. And so it would be useful for us to think about, when we start thinking about the project selection criteria, how do we incorporate safety? Similarly, we often never think about safety in terms of if we have certain number of fatalities per 1,000 miles, if we simply reduced VMT, that actually reduced fatalities too. And so, but the input there is going to be land use, not as much as transportation improvement. So as we start thinking about these safety criteria, which we have already adopted, even asset condition, it would be useful for us to start thinking about how do we incorporate that into our project selection criteria and quality proposal itself. So if you all have any thought, we will have a thorough discussion on NPO's role in safety at the next Tempo meeting, which is going to be next week on Wednesday. So if you have any thought right now, or if you want to email me, I'll be happy to talk about it at that meeting as well. Any other question, comment? Yeah.
Should announce we are next week. You may have already heard about this Tuesday
Oh,
afternoon.
I forgot.
3:30 to 6:30. We're having an open house style public meeting for our 84 Franklin schematic that we're working on. It's 84 from US Drive, splits off with Franklin all the way down to New York. That's one of the projects that I was talking about. That we're putting into. We got 3:30 to 6:30 come and go. If you can't make it, there will be a virtual option video also that'll stay posted, I guess, from here on out. So,
if you have not received the notification for that, I think I probably should have put it on our agenda itself.
I should have, and I meant to.
Yeah, no, that's fine. What we'll do is that we'll email it with the location and the time.
Thank you for bringing that to my attention.
Did I just put it on my calendar?
I was looking up all this. I said that thing. Let me go back up.
I mean, I could be wrong.
If you use 3:30, you'll be on time.
3:30 to 6:30 is what's on my calendar. So
All right.
Sure.
we can stay extra hour.
That's right.
You'll be there.
That's right.
Clayton, did you want to add something?
I was just saying, Victor, I think that 3:30 is for us to get there and set up and have a briefing beforehand.
So is it just 4:30 to 6:30 then?
I think so, yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that's what the invite.
Yes, it did. It said 4:30.
4:30.
Yeah. it's 4:30. Yeah.
Genius was trying to get everybody to help set up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I made it blow.
Yeah, well, I just pulled up the exact location. Also, it's 200 Colonnade Parkway. That's where the public meeting is, in case you don't have that. But we'll make sure that we email it. to
That's
you.
on 84, right? Yeah, in Woodway at the Spring Hill Suites on 84 in Woodway. And I would encourage as many of you to get there as can. It's, those of us who know a little bit about transportation should be willing to share our thoughts on it.
Yeah. Well, before we adjourn, can we go around the room and if we have any update from your respective area that you want to bring to our attention? So why don't we start from?
When you say updates, I'm not quite sure what you're looking for, or asking for.
Anything that you want us to know.
So just one thing, I do have some students who are at the Family Youth Center, and I don't think buses are going to either anymore. And a lot of the women who are at the Family Youth Center don't have transportation. So I didn't know if there was something we could do as far as maybe getting the bus to go a little bit closer to their home. School and work, and it's a lot of far, so.
So Jenna, we'll definitely pass that along to transit, but also if you email me or you just look on the website, there's a link to that survey that is going on right now. So you can,
That's one that just opened today? Okay.
and that would be a very good opportunity for more than just you to comment. So let your students know and let everyone know. So I can either email that to you. What I'll try to do is when we send out the other email, I'll try to include that as well. That information.
Morton with planning services for the city of Waco. I guess one exciting update that we have in development services is that we're in the process of hiring a long-range planning manager. And so the person in that role will most likely be working with the NPO towards making updates and recommendations for further implementation. So we're really excited about that. Look forward to having that person on board.
Us too.
Yes.
Amy for Larley County Director of Public Works, City of Waco. I think I've probably said enough.
Debbie here with TechStot. I guess an update would be that I actually am not going to be the public transportation coordinator anymore. I've moved to compliance in PTN. So I'll probably send you a couple names.
We'll miss you, Debbie.
Great, thank you.
Brenton Lane, planning at TechStot, and I don't have anything that aren't.
I'm Craig Ramon with City of Robinson, and this is just my second meeting, and I'm still working to get caught up with everybody else.
But we love him.
I'm Zane Dunham, county engineer, and we don't have any pedestrian improvements scheduled right now for the county.
Great.
Yeah, we'll text out and have nothing else. So,
Okay.
Frank Flavors from the city of America. Thing I got to say is, we got a new company coming in to learn there, so.
Great.
Tim's asking, playing city role for the city. Looking for people who want to serve on the city council, especially the mayor. 35 years.
I'm presuming you need to live in that vicinity, right?
That's priceless.
And any update from everyone who had joined us virtually? Meg, I think I see your hand up.
Sorry.
You're muted. Yeah. Okay, if not, then thank you all very much, and I look forward to seeing you next time.
I said he's participating as well.
We need to.
Put it up to. I was on the, I think, 2 more years.
I enjoy doing it. Keeps me informed. Yeah, yeah. The guy that's, city secretary